Hello, my name is Jose, and in this video I'll be using some new calligraphy pens I got to ink some drawings I made earlier. Hello, welcome to my video. As you can see, I got some markers here. I usually get something like the Faber-Castells or even Prismacolors to ink in some drawings, and there is some issues that I find because most of the tips are just fill tips and you get more of just a straight line with the same thickness all throughout. And they do have brush pens, but as you can see right here, most of the time they're just one thickness, and it's a little harder to get specific lines that are a little bit more defined. So I found this pack of calligraphy pens that supposedly most of them, if not all of them, are brush tip pens, and I wanted to try them because a lot of the times you do want to get some very thick to thin lines or some weighted drawing lines, as some people might call them different things. But these ones are Misu Love brand. They're calligraphy pens, but as you can see with the ones I'm going to show you here, they are all brush pens, but they are different sizes. Most markers you find are a very standard brush pen size, and when you're doing a small drawing, it is a little more difficult to get a finer line that you're able to give it some thickness throughout as you're sketching or drawing out the outlines. Now, you are able to do this with the other pens I just showed, and a lot of people do them, and I do them too, but the problem you end up finding, or at least I find, is that when you use a regular pen from Faber-Castell or Prismacolor, like I said, you have one thickness all throughout, and you're able to go back and add thicknesses throughout and make certain areas thicker, but it kind of takes too long in my opinion. Sometimes you can tell when you start, when you finish, and it's not as dynamic or smooth as I want for it to be. So now I have this picture, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to ink it with these brand new pens, and I wanted to leave it real time. A lot of the videos you see online of artists doing work, it's a lot of skipping throughout the process or going through and just doing a time lapse. But for this video, since I'm just sketching, since I'm just outlining some sketches that I did earlier, I just wanted to go through, since it's simpler, and just kind of leave it be real time. Here I'm using one of the smallest brush pens, and you will see in certain areas, like right here, what I mean from going from a thinner line to a thicker line or a weighted line. And this is something that's been used for a long time in any type of animation or caricature drawing, and it's a way to have the drawing be a little bit more dynamic, which I always have a hard time doing using different pens. So this is why I want to try these ones. If you really want some good examples of what I mean by a weighted line and how certain areas have thicker lines, look at any coloring book, and you would see how there are a lot of areas that the lines are way thicker, usually around the feet or around heavier areas of the drawing, or areas that are bigger in volume. And this is done to make the drawing look a bit more interesting. Now, I haven't tried these pens yet. A lot of the times when I do an outline like this on a drawing, I either use watercolors, markers, even color pencils. So for these, I just wanted to test out how the actual brush pens worked, and so I didn't do any tests to see how they held up to being erased. I left the pencil lines alone, or how they handle having watercolors or markers. So I don't know how they will do with that. I don't know how much they would bleed, or if any at all. But as you can see right here, I'm pretty confident that if they don't bleed and if they're able to be paired up with other mediums, I'm pretty happy with the way they work. they give me enough control and enough weight and pressure sensitivity that I'm able to get some thinner to thicker lines. I did notice in some areas that the speed you draw matters a little bit more than more regular outlining markers. If you go a little bit slow, the line does get a little bit wobbly, so you kind of have to use pressure and speed, similar to if you're a face painter, like I've been for many years. When you're doing a lot of outlines or teardrops or swirls, the speed helps control how smooth the line is, and the slower you go, the little more wobbly the line tends to be. So it's the same thing with these markers, I found out. Like for example, that line I just did, a little bit slower, and it does look a little wavy as you're doing it. Now this is the second smallest marker. I believe I used 3 different markers through this process. I did 3 different drawings. I believe in the next drawing I use a marker that's a little bit thicker, or this one, I don't remember precisely. But here's the first one done. Now moving on to the second one. And yes, I used the same one. So again, the reason why I wanted to do 3 different drawings was because one, I had this drawing sketch and I wanted to ink them to see what the style looked like. And also, sometimes when using a new medium, if you use it just once, it's not enough of a time period for you to realize what you like or not like about them. So I wanted to go back here, and here's when I switched to a different marker. I switched to a different marker just to get a different feeling, but I wanted to play around with it. And like I said, sometimes you get a new art medium or a new art technique that you're trying out, and just doing it once is not good enough to really see how it looks like. It's like if you're playing an instrument or if you're learning to ride a bike, just getting on the bike once and falling over does not really give you a time period for you to really realize whether you're good at it or not, whether you can develop that skill or not. So I always say this: if you're trying a new medium in art or in anything, give it more than one shot. Because the first time you try to do something, it's never going to be the best you are able to do at it. So that's why I wanted to give this 3 different tries with 3 different drawings, very similar, just to see how it changes. But as you can look at what I'm doing right now and what I've already done in this drawing, like the hair and the face, it does look a lot more dynamic than just the same thickness all throughout, which is usually what I would get when I was using my other markers. And it's one of the reasons why I kind of stay away from doing markers. It's just because even if the blending, the coloration, everything looks really great, the outlines, it's where I kind of feel myself come a little short. By just taking a look here, starting with the arm and the shirt, again, I'm getting some lines that have some nice variation going from thick to thin. And like I said, you can do that with the brush pens that come with regular markers. It's just, in my opinion, they're a little bit too wide of a brush nib for you to be able to get some nice small details like these small drawings. If you're doing a bigger drawing, they work great, but it's hard to get the small little details with a lot of control. Now I'm doing these drawings, I am doing some character pages. For some characters I'm trying to work on that I might develop into a bigger project. But as you can see, this is the same person, the same character, in 3 different stages of growth. A lot of the times when people draw a character, they just stick to the same age. I wanted to play around with it to see part of the characterization of a character is how they develop and how they grow. And a lot of the times I do feel that sometimes when I'm developing a character, I overlook that heavily. So with this one, I wanted to do 3 different stages. So here coming up is going to be the oldest version of this character when he's basically a young adult. And for this one, I went ahead and I used a smaller nib, I believe, or a bigger one. No, this one's bigger. So yeah, for this one's bigger. So again, same process. Might be a little bit boring, but I just kind of want to go through it and find out how it felt. Now, I didn't do it on this paper because it's just regular drawing paper, and it's hard to see how outline markers react on drawing paper when adding markers or watercolors, because the paper does affect how watercolors and markers behave. So I didn't want to do that and have my opinion on how these markers behaved with other mediums be dependent or reliant on the paper. So later on I will do a video using these markers and testing out how they behave with markers and watercolors, and then I'll do a piece using the markers with watercolors and other markers to see how they behave overall. But for this one, I just want to keep it simple. I just wanted to kind of get used to how they work and how they feel, because different brush markers feel very differently. Some of them are quite stiff, like I found like some of this is the second smallest, I believe, and although it works really well and you're able to get a lot of weight to the lines, it is a little stiff compared to the other one that I was using that was a little larger. So yeah, so I did want to get a feel for them before I went in and created something with them. And but yeah, so I like how they work for outlining. I don't know how they're going to work for larger pieces that are going to rely more on other mediums. Overall, I'm pretty happy with them. I did not use any of the bigger brush pens because it defeats the whole purpose. I already have other bigger brush pens, but I do plan on trying them out. Like I said, these are supposed to be calligraphy pens that you're able to do a lot of weighted lines with them. So that's why I got them, because if they are good enough for calligraphy, they should be good enough for drawing. But again, being that they're for calligraphy, I wouldn't expect for them to be great at being mixed with other mediums, but we will see that in the future. So here we are almost at the end. I just got the shoes left, and I do go back. I do decide to go back and add some thickness to some areas. But I wanted to see what you guys thought about this style. I'm trying to find something a little simpler that can still carry some emotion, and I wanted to keep the body forms somewhat realistic with some sense of anatomies. Because sometimes I found myself, when I simplify things or I try to make things more stylized, when I start losing the human form or the anatomy of the legs, the arms, the body, it kind of doesn't really, it's not as relatable to me, at least when I draw it. So I wanted to see what this will look like. Let me know what you guys thought, and thank you so much for watching my video. Have a good day. Bye. Thanks for watching my video. Make sure to like it, leave a comment below, and for more art related videos, go to my channel and subscribe.